Welp, you guys have done it. In my last video, I asked you guys to vote for which dimension I should travel to first, with the options being the ocean sphere, an endless ocean with sunken structures and floating islands, or the ancient sphere, a dry wasteland with ghost towns and structures buried beneath. And you guys really wanted me to go to the ancient sphere, so you've spoken. Enough wasting time, let's get right into this. The description says, here lies ancient remnants of what once was a thriving sphere torn away by a catastrophic meteor shower, with the only remains being buried. And after teleporting to the ancient sphere, the chunks loaded in, and it did look like a barren wasteland, which included this abandoned villager house. It had a pot with some food things in it, and a villager skull buried beneath, meaning that someone used to live here. I also found this huge town which looked fully intact, but when I actually got there, there were these weird looking ghost villagers, and I heard things opening and closing. The loot wasn't bad at all though, with enchanted crossbows and a cowboy hat, which you can use to ride mounts faster. But when I looked at the wild west of town, it was completely under a cliff, and not only were there a lot of ghost villagers, but a lot of skeletons as well. And sometimes they just go on a full-on war with each other, but at least there's some precious gold. I guess you could say I teleported to the gold rush because there was a lot of gold. I even found this cool ravine with ghost miners which helped me find other materials, such as this cool lapis vein right here. But even after all this exploring, nothing really triggered a quest notification, and it was getting dark out, so there were strong mobs out like scorpions, skeleton wolves, and big-headed starving looking things. And the nether-like environment did not help at all. Thankfully, I did find this buried structure, and according to the quest book, it says, looks like a barren wasteland. Maybe there are some buried goods. And what do you know, I found a couple good axes, some enchants, but no quest alert went off. So I would have to do even more exploring. And eventually, I would end up finding the thing to trigger a quest alert. And its description says, find remains of an ancient creature, then it will guide you to the shiny key. Meaning I will have to brush out all of this suspicious gravel until I find something that is related to something living. I don't really know how else to put it. And after about 15 minutes of digging and brushing, I finally found the sniffer egg, which is an ancient creature. And after that, I went back to the spawn point, placed the egg, and waited for it to hatch. Now the total time for it to fully grow, which includes the egg hatching and the snifflet growing, will take about an hour. So I decided to decorate spawn, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Now I just had to wait an extra 30 minutes. In the meantime, I grabbed some ice cream and talked about life a bit with the snifflet. And after the snifflet grew into a sniffer, it was time to wait another few minutes for it to sniff out the item I need. And the item in question will make all this wait worth it. That item being the torch flower seeds. I'm just kidding, it's another map. Now this map in question will lead to another hidden structure, but it will have the key to progression. And when I mean this is a hidden structure, I really mean it. All there was surrounding the X was lava pools surrounded by basalt pillars, and another ghost town. But after digging for a while, I finally found the structure overwritten by the ghost town. Thankfully, it was only the surface part that was affected. And when I went underground, I had officially entered the catacombs. I was immediately greeted by pots and piles of bones, followed by a skeleton room, a ladder followed by a staircase, and last but not least, a room with a key that's guarded by the Silver Queen, which is a tankier version of a silverfish. And after defeating her, I went back into the room and picked up the key. That key being the Totem of Radiance, which can be used to summon another boss. But I'll have to unlock another sphere first. And in order to unlock that sphere, you would need to anger the archaeologist's enemies, and then start a raid. So I went back to the ghost town, killed one of the ghost illagers, and then I got a quest notification. And its description says, you have really angered the enemies. Going back to the allies may result in consequences. So I went back to the village, and the raid had begun. And according to the next quest, I had to defeat the beast to get access to their world. The first wave was pretty typical, barely any changes. Wave 2 saw this special witch and some armored enemies, but in Wave 3, the beast had appeared. That beast being the Ravager. And once I defeated the Ravager, I had officially unlocked the Spooky Sphere. Now the raid does keep going, but I decided to retreat after Wave 3 because the mobs get really strong. Anyways, the Spooky Sphere's description says, "Here is the home of the pillagers and insects. No villager is allowed here, and being allies will result in consequences." But I decided to go in anyway. And when I first spawned in, it looked like to be another middle of the ocean, but there was some land nearby. And the first quest says, go to the mines and summon the crab with a shiny light. Which means I will have to grab the following materials on screen and find somewhere deep enough to summon the crab. But while I go and collect the items, I will have to deal with pillager after pillager. But at least you'll find some cool structures on the way. Like this revamped witch hut, which contains a hat, which gives you the ability to trade with witches. Well, sorta, because you don't really know what item you will receive. Anyways, the first material I would find for the boss summon is a lunite, which spawns on any surface in the Spooky Sphere. However, the rest of the materials are found underground, like glow ink sacs and amethyst geodes. I spent at least half an hour trying to find an amethyst geode, but to no avail. However, I did find a mine shaft, and it had a lot of stuff in it. Like maps to other locations, pillager miners, different themed rooms, different floors, different kinds of traps, a new artifact called the Onion Ring, crazy enchanted gear, and most importantly of all, an amethyst geode. Well, the geode was found outside the mineshaft, but I had all the materials I need. So I went back to the mineshaft, built the structure, and then summoned the amethyst crab. Now at first, it may look like this thing just follows you around, but it does have a couple unique attacks, such as crouching and shielding itself, and then spitting out amethyst shards from all angles. In this case, I would use my bow and run along the mineshaft, and then pillar up when it's in its shielding phase so I don't get hit by the shards. And then I go the opposite direction to shoot it again. And that strategy paid off because I quickly defeated the amethyst crab and unlocked the deep sphere. And with that, I would also unlock the bloomstone pauldrons, which gives you the ability to shoot amethyst shards in all directions, just like the amethyst crab. During this episode, we have unlocked 7 spheres and 16 different artifacts. I know this video was short, but the next episode's going to be jam-packed with exploration throughout the deep sphere. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, because we got a long way to go still.